All right, here goes the video. Okay. If you could just tell me your name and your position and a little bit about this place.
My name's Michael Wolfe.
Michael Wolfe.
I'm the mayor of the city of Hempstead.
Hempstead, Texas.
Hempstead, Texas.
Okay.
This cemetery is known as the Houston Cemetery, and the name is given based on the direction in which the cemetery is. It's one of two cemeteries where the blacks are buried here in the city of Hempstead. The other cemetery is known as Oakwood Cemetery or / Brenham Cemetery, but these are the two cemeteries here in the city of Hempstead.
Okay, so Oakwood Cemetery and Houston Cemetery, which is where we are now,
right,
are the two cemeteries where black people are buried.
Where black people are buried.
Where are non-blacks buried?
Non-blacks are buried up front in the cemetery, just directly at the entrance when you're coming in, known as the Hempstead Cemetery. Across from it is the Hebrew Cemetery. You have the Hempstead Cemetery where the whites are buried.
Okay.
Then you have the Hebrew Cemetery where the Jews are buried.
Okay. The Hebrew Cemetery is sort of a little small off area, closer to Hempstead Cemetery.
Fenced in.
Fenced in. Why isn't it here? Why isn't it closer to this one?
That's a good question. That's a question that many people have always asked, but it was basically the way that things were done. You know, the Jews have their place of burial. There's a place of burial for blacks, a place of burial for African Americans. And then there's an additional cemetery on the outskirts of Hempstead where the majority of the Hispanics are buried.
Really? I didn't know that. What's the name of the Hispanic cemetery?
It's actually the Catholic. It's under the name of the Catholic. It's called the Catholic Cemetery. But that's where the majority of the Hispanics are buried.
So is it affiliated with the church, with the Catholic Church? Or?
I'm sure that it is.
Is there a church near the cemetery?
No.
Okay.
The church is in Hempstead, center of town.
I see. Now tell me a little bit about where we are in terms of the environment. It looks like the lawn is freshly mowed.
Yeah, it's well manicured now. It's the city. These cemeteries were recently obtained by the city this year.
You mean they were under somebody's jurisdiction before?
Actually, there was no one who actually had jurisdiction. We had what was called cemetery associations.
Oh.
And those associations pretty much maintain the upkeep of the cemetery.
Did they have title to the property?
Clear titles, no.
Like a leasehold kind of a thing?
Well, I think it's more or less, no one actually had, in terms of the cemetery associations, actually having access to it. We'll go back to City Hall and see if we can give you some information that may pertain to it. But it was involved in a lawsuit action.
Oh, really?
Which basically brought about the city obtaining it.
Oh, okay. It's a wonderful public service. Have you all thought about getting these cemeteries put into the state or federal, national register or anything like that?
Absolutely. Not as far as I know of. But as far as I know of, I don't think it has occurred.
Okay. There's unmarked people here.
A lot of them.
How many do you think are buried here? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. I have no idea. We only know that there's slaves that are buried here, so it goes back that far in both cemeteries, and here at the Houston Cemetery and also at the Oakwood Cemetery.
So this is a slave burial ground?
Well, we do believe that that's if you look at some of the stones, they could probably go back that far.
Okay. And probably the slave burials were not marked.
You'll find many of the slave burials that were actually marked.
Okay.
But being that those are the only two cemeteries inside the city limits where blacks are buried. Now, outside the city of Hempstead, there are several cemeteries where blacks in communities are buried. And so, but inside the city, these are the two known cemeteries where blacks are buried. So even with slaves or the case, but they would be in either this cemetery or an actual cemetery over at Oakwood.
Where is Hempstead, Texas?
Hempstead is actually located, we'd say, about 50 miles northwest of Houston.
Okay. And what was its history?
Well, it was known, per se, the name, as I was growing up as a kid, they called it Six-Shooter Junction. And
Six-Shooter Junction.
They called it Six-Shooter Junction.
Okay.
And so I don't know why. I never really asked a whole lot about why they named it Six-Shooter Junction, but if you would talk to many people, whether it was black or white or Hispanic, whomever they may be, they could give you a better definition of why they called it Six-Shooter Junction. But it was known as Six-Shooter Junction.
historically, in the 19th century, the primary economic thing here was plantation agriculture?
Definitely.
Who were some of the big planters here?
Actually, I really can't tell you in terms of names, in terms of who they were, but quite a few people. The family, and some of their descendants are still living in the city.
What is the demographic breakdown?
It's multicultural now in terms of whites, blacks, and
About what percentage of each?
it's hard to be specific, but just the breakdown in terms of differences, maybe 4 to 5% between the blacks and the whites, and then maybe about 10 to 12% difference between the Hispanics and the blacks.
Okay, great. Well, sir, thank you very much.
Oh, definitely. I'm just glad to know that you are taking upon such a project.